At my husband's anniversary campaign dinner, 50 people froze when they saw my face. My left eye was swollen shut, my cheek split open, mascara streaked like tire marks across my skin. Ryan just smiled his campaign pin, catching the chandelier light, his arm locked around me like we were the perfect couple. Emily had a little accident this morning, he joked, and a few nervous laughs clinked against crystal glasses. Across the room, his sisters smirked into their champagne. They knew they'd done this to me just hours before in our living room with his blessing. My parents stared horrified, a camera crew kept filming, and in my pocket my phone was already recording. But what they didn't know was my twin sister was on her way. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most, and trust me, this one is about to get darker before any light shows up. I wasn't always the woman who walked into a room with a bruised face and a frozen smile. I used to be the girl who laughed too loudly at my own jokes, who painted until 2 in the morning because color made me feel alive, who believed people were good if you loved them hard enough. Back then, Ryan Collins was the man who proved me right, or so I thought. We met 12 years ago at a blind date my coworker set up. The original guy never showed. I remember sitting alone in that tiny diner, fingers wrapped around a lukewarm mug, pretending not to feel humiliated. Then the bell above the door chimed and Ryan walked in sharp suit, warm smile, confidence that filled the whole damn room. He walked straight to my table. "Bad date?" he asked, sliding into the booth without waiting for permission. "Worst," I said. "Then let me upgrade your night." I didn't know it then, but that moment would matter later. Because he always knew exactly how to step into a gap in my life, how to rescue me just enough to make me feel chosen, indebted. He drove me home that night, jazz humming through his car speakers, city lights streaking across the windshield. Erin was waiting on my porch, arms crossed, ponytail high, eyes sharp. She was my twin, but we were opposites in every possible way. She didn't smile when she saw him. "Cute suit," she said dryly. "Shame confidence doesn't hide everything." Ryan leaned toward me and whispered, "She's protective. I get it." But something tightened in his jaw. I swallowed it, brushing off the tension. Erin saw danger in everyone back then. Or so I believed. For our first year together, Ryan made me feel adored. Flowers at work, surprise picnics. He showed up at my art class with coffee for every kid. He touched the small of my back when we walked, open doors, remembered my favorite brand of paintbrushes. I thought I'd found my safe place. But the first crack came subtle. Year 3. We'd been married only a few months when he came home frustrated from a development meeting. I accidentally dropped his phone while handing it to him. It wasn't even a hard fall, and he exploded. He slammed his fist against the wall so loudly my whole body jolted. His face went red, veins visible. "You never pay attention, Emily. How many times do I have to remind you?" I apologized instantly, though the screen wasn't even cracked. 5 minutes later, he was crying, telling me he was under pressure, that his dad had never taught him how to handle anger. I hugged him. I shouldn't have. But I did. I didn't know it then, but this would matter later. That night taught him I would forgive anything if he cried afterward. Over the years, his control didn't come all at once. It was slow, quiet, methodical. He began commenting on my clothes, first as compliments, then as suggestions, then as requirements. "Wear something softer. That color's a bit loud. You don't want people thinking you're trying too hard." By year 6, he had taken over our finances to help us save better. My paychecks were deposited into his account. He gave me a debit card with a weekly limit. A limit. Like I was a teenager on allowance. But he praised me for handling it well, and I mistook that pat on the head for love. Erin noticed instantly. She'd show up to drive me to brunch and I'd cancel with a weak excuse. "Ryan wants to rest," or "I'm not feeling great," or "let's do next week." She didn't buy it. One day she drove to my house anyway, waited in the driveway. When I stepped out, Ryan followed, leaning casually against the doorway. "You again," he said with a smile too tight to be real. "Emily's tired. Big week." Erin ignored him. You ready?" I can't today," I whispered. Erin's eyes narrowed. "Because you're tired, or because you're scared?" Ryan laughed softly. "You're projecting, Erin. Maybe you should work on your own issues rather than inventing ours." She left that day, furious tears in her eyes. I didn't know it then, but I would replay that look in my mind years later when I finally realized she'd been right all along. Meanwhile, his sisters Madison and Lena started coming around more often. Madison, the older one, was always polished, always assessing me like I was a corporate asset she needed to fix. She'd walk through my kitchen with a wrinkled nose. "Emily, you're still cooking with boxed broth? You know real wives make their own stock." I'd laugh awkwardly. I can learn. You should, she'd reply coldly. Ryan deserves the best. Lena was worse in her own way. Younger, hyperactive, glued to her phone. She treated me like content, something to record, critique, mock, in group chats I'd never see. She once recorded me struggling to open a stuck jar lid and posted it with the caption, "Weak wife energy." She found it hilarious. Ryan just told me I was too sensitive. I didn't know it then, but Lena's habit of recording everything would come back in a way none of us expected. My job teaching elementary art was the only place I could breathe. My students adored me. I adored them. In that classroom, I remembered who I used to be. Mrs. Gomez, a senior teacher, once pulled me aside. "Sweetheart," she said, gently touching my arm, "your makeup isn't covering it. Who hurt you?" I panicked and told her I'd bumped into a cabinet door. She didn't believe me. "Take pictures," she whispered. "Every time, even if you delete them later." Her voice had that quiet authority of someone who'd seen too much. I pretended her words didn't shake me. They did. Back home, the walls felt tighter each month. Ryan criticized how I folded towels, how I loaded groceries, how I spoke too softly at dinners. He'd sigh, long and disappointed. "You make things harder than they need to be, Em." I swallowed the shame again and again. It carved deeper than I realized. And all the while, my parents watched from the sidelines, noticing the fading spark in my eyes. My mom, a nurse, clocked every bruise I claimed came from bumping into things. My dad, quiet and patient, began jotting notes in a small notebook he kept in his coat. I didn't know why then. But I would. There was one night, year 7 of the marriage, when everything should have clicked. When the truth brushed against my skin so sharply, I should have bled from it. But I smoothed it over like I always did. Ryan had just gotten home from a fundraiser his father arranged. He walked in smelling like whiskey and cedarwood cologne, the one he knew I loved. I was cleaning up paints in the living room because I'd stayed up late working on a piece for my students. A mural design they wanted to surprise the principal with. He stepped over the art supplies like they were trash. "We talked about this," he said, voice flat. "The house is not your studio." I apologized. "Of course I did." I bent down to gather the brushes, but one rolled under the couch. "Emily." His tone sharpened. "Are you even listening?" I stood, brush in hand. "Yes, I'm sorry. I'll put everything away." Then he said something that I didn't forget even when I tried. "You're not an artist. You're a teacher. There's a difference. Stop pretending you're something special." He walked upstairs while I stood frozen. That sentence carved a wound so deep I felt it echo years later. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the first time I felt truly hollow. Months passed. The control grew. The sisters tightened their grip too. Anytime they visited, my chest knotted like a fist. Madison inspected everything: my fridge, my makeup drawer, my laundry room. "Emily, this detergent is cheap." What image do you think Ryan's clothes give when you wash them? In this Lena, meanwhile, treated me like a toy. One afternoon, I came home to find her sitting on my couch wearing my sweater, filming some TikTok dance. "Oh, chill," she said when I walked in. "You weren't using it." I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced a smile that barely held. I didn't know it then, but swallowing that scream would become habit, one that nearly cost me everything. Then came the Thanksgiving incident, one I still can't think about without tasting bitterness on my tongue. We were at Ryan's parents' mansion. Long dining table, gold-rimmed plates, a turkey big enough to feed a neighborhood. His father, Richard, was in rare form, tossing political jokes, telling stories about Ryan's childhood achievements like they were fables. I sat there quietly, like a well-trained ornament. But when dessert came, things shifted. Helen, my mom, had brought a pumpkin pie she baked from scratch. She placed it gently on the table, proud. Before she could slice it, Madison reached over with her fork, took a bite straight from the tin, and wrinkled her nose. "Is this store-bought?" My mother flushed. "No, it tastes basic." Madison set the fork down dramatically. Emily must have helped. The table laughed. My father didn't. He leaned back, eyes narrowing in quiet evaluation. He didn't say anything, but I saw him write something in that notebook later. After dinner, as we all stood in the foyer preparing to leave, Lena bumped into me purposely and whispered, "You'll never fit here. Just stop trying." I smiled weakly, murmured an apology. Apologized. For what I still don't know. Erin, who'd come separately, saw my face when we stepped outside into the cold November air. She grabbed my arm. "You good?" she asked. "I'm fine," I whispered. "You're not." And she was right. But I wasn't ready to hear it. I didn't know it then, but that night would become Exhibit C in the file my father was building. Through all of this, school was my sanctuary. But even their signs were slipping through. One day in early spring, the sunlight spilling through the classroom windows felt too bright. My head throbbed. My left shoulder ached from where Ryan accidentally grabbed me too hard the night before during an argument about Aaron texting me. Mrs. Gomez stopped me grading papers. "Honey," she murmured. "I know that look. I've seen it before. I'm okay." I lied. "No," she whispered. "You're getting smaller in front of me. That's not okay." Smaller. Yes, that's exactly how it felt. I didn't know it then, but her words planted a seed, one that would bloom on the worst morning of my life. Then came the wine incident. It was 2 nights before our anniversary. I'd cooked Ryan's favorite dinner, short rib stew, roasted rosemary potatoes, homemade bread. The house smelled warm and safe for the first time in months. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd notice. Madison wrinkled her nose after one bite. "It's dry." Lena loudly agreed, recording Madison's critique like it was a comedy sketch. My hand trembled as I poured wine for Madison. A few drops splashed onto her imported silk dress. Not a spill, not a stain, just droplets. She shot up, shrieking, "Are you kidding me? This cost 8 grand. I apologized instantly, grabbing napkins, stammering. But Ryan didn't defend me. He sighed dramatically, rubbing his temples. "So careless, Emily. Embarrassing me again. Embarrassing him. Not hurting his sister. Him." I didn't know it then, but my ability to shrink in that moment, my silent apology, would fuel what happened later. That night, he slept in the guest room. The next morning, Lena ruined the new dress I'd bought for the anniversary dinner. Not accidentally, not even subtly. There was a giant bleach streak across the front. She held the cleaning spray bottle with that childish grin. "My bad," she said. Ryan believed her over me. Or pretended to. At that point, it was hard to tell if he lied to himself or only to me. 2 years of small bruises. 4 years of shrinking voice. 10 years of being molded into someone quiet, obedient, convenient. And my parents watched it all, helpless but patient. My mom once held my face between both her hands, searching my eyes. "You can tell me," she whispered. "I'm here." But I shook my head. Because admitting the truth meant admitting I'd married a man who never loved me, only loved controlling me. I didn't know it then, but the morning of our 10th anniversary, when everything shattered in the living room, when Madison's palm met my cheek and Lena's shove sent me into the glass table, that was the moment all those years converged into one brutal awakening. Painful, bloody, necessary, and eventually freeing. The morning after the ruined dress incident, I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest. Not fear. Exactly, fear was familiar, almost predictable by then, but something colder. Something like a warning. I ignored it like I ignored everything my body tried to tell me during that marriage. Ryan was standing at the foot of the bed in his suit, adjusting his tie in the mirror. He didn't look at me at first. He just said, "We need to talk." Those 4 words had become code in our marriage. They never meant conversation. They meant accusation. I sat up, pulling the blanket over my nightgown. "Okay." He turned then, face smooth, expressionless, in that way he reserved for political events and arguments he planned to win. "You embarrassed my sister last night," he said. "And then you made a scene afterward by accusing Lena of ruining your dress." I started. He lifted a hand sharply. "Don't interrupt me." The room shrank. My breathing went shallow. His voice dropped into that soft, almost disappointed register that always made me feel like a child. "Emily, you're becoming hysterical again. You twist things. You misinterpret. You let your emotions control you." I stared at him. "Ryan." She poured bleach down the front. "Because you left it on the bed," he snapped. "You always leave things lying around. And Madison had a terrible night because of your careless wine spill, which you still haven't apologized for properly." I had apologized, at least 20 times. My throat was raw from apologizing. He stepped closer, kneeling beside the bed, like he was comforting a sick patient. "Sweetheart, it's like you want people to pity you, like you enjoy playing the victim." Something cracked inside me then, like a hairline fracture that's invisible at first, but deepens every time you put weight on it. "I'm not playing anything," I whispered. He sighed, straightened his sleeves. "We'll continue this later. I need to get to my meeting. Please clean the house today. Mom and Dad are coming over tonight." He leaned in to kiss my forehead like he was granting permission for me to breathe, then left. When the door shut behind him, I stayed in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling. The heaviness in my chest settled deeper like an anchor. I didn't know it then, but that morning would set the tone for everything that followed. Later that day at school, Mrs. Gomez stopped me in the hallway. "You look pale," she murmured. "Everything okay at home?" I opened my mouth. Yes. The lie was automatic. But she didn't buy it. She studied me the way a doctor examines a wound. Just remember, she said gently, women in my generation were taught to keep quiet. It didn't save us. Silence never does. Her words scraped something raw in me. I carried that scrape home with me. When I arrived, Lena's car was already in the driveway. Music thumped from inside the house, bass heavy, shaking the windows. She was filming herself dancing in the living room wearing one of my scarves. Can you turn it down? I asked softly. I have a headache. She didn't even pause the recording. You're always whining, she said loudly, performing for the camera. No wonder Ryan's stressed out. I froze. She kept going. Look, guys, she said to her phone, Emily's mad because I borrowed her ugly scarf. Her followers spammed laughing emojis on the screen. Heat flushed up my neck. Anger, embarrassment, shame tangled so tightly I couldn't breathe. Lena, I didn't say you couldn't use it, I said shakily. Just, please lower the volume. She stopped recording but didn't lower the music. You should be grateful I'm even here, she said. Ryan worries about you. You're too sensitive. Someone needs to keep an eye on you before you spiral again. Spiral again? As if I had ever spiraled. As if everything happening wasn't because her brother controlled every inch of my life. Before I could answer, she smirked. By the way, Ryan said, you shouldn't have spent money on that dress. You know he doesn't like when you waste his income. His income. Not ours. Never ours. I swallowed the words burning on my tongue. Fighting Lena never ended well. That night, Ryan's parents came over. Elaine complimented the house, then immediately pointed out dust on a lamp I'd already cleaned twice. Richard shook Ryan's hand like he was a senator already. Tomorrow night is big, he said. We need everything perfect. Emily. No surprises, okay? No surprises. I was a grown woman being warned like a child. After dinner, while I washed dishes, I heard them talking in the living room. Richard said, she needs tightening up. She looks frail, not good optics. Elaine murmured, maybe she's depressed. That's not ideal for the campaign either. Ryan answered, I'm handling her. Handling. Like I wasn't even a person. Their voices blended into one muffled stream. My fingers pruned under the dishwater. A plate slipped from my hands and shattered in the sink. The sound was like a gunshot. Everyone went silent. Elaine stepped into the kitchen. Emily, she said slowly, how hard is it to wash a plate? I stood there, dripping water, humiliated, a child being scolded by the principal. I'll clean it up, I whispered. Of course you will, she said, turning away. Later that night, when Ryan and I were finally alone, I tried again. You know the bleach on the dress wasn't an accident. He exhaled dramatically. God, Emily, can you stop obsessing? Lena feels awful about it. No, she doesn't. You're projecting again, he said. This is what Mrs. Norris meant when she suggested therapy for you. You told her private things about me. She's a family friend. She wants what's best for us. A chill went through me. They were talking about me behind my back, framing me as unstable. Ryan, I said quietly, this isn't fair. His face hardened. Don't push me tonight. I need sleep. Tomorrow is too important. He turned off the light. I stared into the dark, realizing something I never wanted to face. He didn't want a wife. He wanted an accessory, one he could polish or punish depending on his mood. The next morning, anniversary day, I woke up early to make breakfast. It was a peace offering. A desperate one. I'd just cracked eggs into a pan when I heard footsteps. Heavy. Purposeful. Ryan walked in with Madison behind him, followed by Lena holding her phone like she was filming a reality show. My stomach dropped. We need a conversation, Ryan said. His tone was deadly calm. Madison crossed her arms. Emily, you've been incredibly disrespectful, Lena chimed in. Like seriously. It's embarrassing. I blinked. What did I do? Don't play innocent, Madison said sharply. Your attitude, your accusations, your energy, my energy. What are you talking about? I whispered. Ryan stepped closer. You talked to Erin again. My heart pounded. She just called to say happy anniversary. He scoffed. Stop lying. I checked the phone records. My throat tightened. I wasn't talking about you. Madison cut me off. You've been complaining about us, spreading negativity, turning Erin against Ryan. Lena added, you're undoing all his hard work by being you, being me. I stepped back, hands trembling. I haven't done anything. Madison's lips curled. Always the victim. Ryan's jaw flexed. You need to learn boundaries. The room felt colder, smaller. Then Madison said something that made everything inside me freeze. Maybe we should teach her how a real Collins woman behaves. Lena laughed. Ryan didn't laugh. He didn't stop them either. What? What does that mean? I whispered. Madison stepped forward. It means discipline. She slapped me so hard my vision blurred. My head snapped sideways. I gasped, hand flying to my cheek. Before I could steady myself, Lena shoved me, hard. My back hit the glass coffee table edge. A white-hot explosion tore through my eyebrow. Something wet, warm slid down my face. Blood. The world tilted. I heard someone gasp, maybe me. Then Ryan's voice. Maybe now you'll show respect. I looked up at him through tears, through pain, through disbelief. He wasn't horrified. He wasn't confused. He was satisfied. Everything that followed blurred like I was underwater, their footsteps retreating, their voices drifting. Fix your face. 2 hours until dinner. Don't embarrass us. Then silence. Just the ringing in my ears and the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. I crawled upstairs, clutching the railing, leaving faint red fingerprints along the white paint. In the bathroom, I locked the door. For the first time in 10 years, I locked something between us. The woman in the mirror didn't look like me. Eye swelling, skin bruising purple, blood streaking down my cheek. I looked like a cautionary tale. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Erin. I hesitated only a second before answering. Em. Her voice was sharp, alert. What happened? Everything inside me broke. They hurt me, I whispered. Ryan let them. I can't. Erin, I can't do this anymore. Her breath caught. Then she said something that would change the course of everything. Stay there. I'm coming. And this time, Emily, we're not doing it his way. That was the moment the fracture inside me stopped being a crack. It became resolve. A quiet, trembling resolve, but a beginning. And I didn't know it yet, but the escalation had barely started. After I hung up with Erin, I stayed in the locked bathroom for nearly an hour. I pressed cold towels to my face, trying to slow the swelling, but it kept ballooning. My cheek throbbed in pulses. Every heartbeat felt like someone hammering from the inside. I dabbed at the blood until it dried in rusty streaks along my eyebrow. The entire time I waited for the sound of footsteps outside the bathroom door. Ryan's, Madison's, Lena's, ready to drag me back into that living room like I was a misbehaving pet. But the house stayed eerily quiet. They didn't come up. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't apologize. They were probably downstairs laughing, drinking coffee, planning how I'd hide this for the dinner. My hands kept shaking so violently, I had to brace myself against the counter. I tried breathing slow, deep breaths like Erin taught me years ago before I stopped going to her classes at Ryan's insistence. The makeup concealer barely made a dent in the bruising. I smeared layer after layer until the shade looked wrong, uneven. It didn't matter. Nothing would hide this. When Ryan knocked on the door an hour later, his voice was too calm. Emily, we need to leave in 20 minutes. I didn't answer. Another knock. Harder. Open the door. I swallowed. I'm almost ready. You'd better be, he said, tone dropping. You know what's at stake tonight. That was his favorite thing to say. It could mean anything, his career, his image, his family's approval. Never mine, never us. I'll be downstairs in a minute, I said, my voice small. He didn't respond. His footsteps receded. I stared at my reflection one last time. My face looked like it belonged to a stranger, but there was something new in my eyes, something raw and sharp, something I hadn't felt in years. Not strength, not yet, but the beginning of anger. A spark. I headed downstairs. Madison and Lena were waiting in the foyer like two judges. Madison's lips curled when she saw me. You didn't try very hard to cover that, she said. I tried, I whispered. Well, it's not enough. Tonight is important for Ryan. Don't ruin it. Lena walked a slow circle around me like she was inspecting a dress on a mannequin. You should just say you fell, like maybe you tripped while doing your little teacher chores. People will buy it, Madison added. And don't mention us, obviously. Lena giggled. Obviously. I felt something hot flicker in my chest. If they weren't afraid of what they'd done, if they were laughing about it, then they weren't going to stop. This wouldn't be the last time, unless I ended it. I didn't know it then, but this thought, just a flicker, a faint ember, would become the fire that burned everything they built. The car ride to the restaurant was suffocating. Ryan drove silently, eyes fixed ahead, jaw clenched. His sisters whispered in the back, their perfume thick and sugary, making me nauseous. Every few minutes I caught them glancing at my swollen eye and smirking. Ryan finally spoke. You remember the story, right? I fell, I recited quietly. In the bathroom while rushing to get ready. He nodded. Good. Madison leaned forward. And if anyone asks about the scratch, just say you hit the sink. Lena chimed in. Or maybe your cat scratched you. Oh wait, you don't have one. Ryan hates cats. They burst into laughter. I looked out the window, forcing myself to breathe. My phone was still recording in my coat pocket. Erin was still on her way. I clung to those two facts like life preservers. When we arrived at the restaurant, the building glowed under rows of fairy lights. The private dining room upstairs was already buzzing with guests. I saw familiar faces, Ryan's business partners, a few local press members, a videographer crew in matching black shirts. And my parents, my mother clutching a small purse, my father standing stiffly beside her. The moment they saw me, their faces changed. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's eyes hardened into something I'd never seen, directed at me, protective fury. Ryan stepped forward smoothly, placing a firm hand on my back as if guiding me. "She fell," he announced loudly. "She was rushing around this morning. We tried covering it, but, well, you know Emily, clumsy as ever." People chuckled politely. My father didn't. He stared straight into Ryan's eyes, unblinking. My mother moved toward me, but Madison slipped between us. "She's fine," Madison said cheerfully. "We checked on her all morning. Checked on me. Like jail wardens." My mother looked at me over Madison's shoulder. Her eyes asked a question I couldn't answer aloud. "Are you safe?" I blinked a tiny trembling no. She understood. I wasn't ready for what happened next. A man approached Ryan, tall, with a clipboard and an earpiece. "The campaign's videographer director. Ryan," he said, "we're rolling B-roll for the announcement later. Keep close to your wife. We want some candid couple shots." He gestured to the cameraman, adjusting his focus. Ryan smiled, polished and bright. "Of course." His hand tightened on my waist like a vice. I realized then everything was being filmed. I wondered if the mic on Ryan's lapel picked up the coldness in his voice every time he whispered, "Stand up straight," or "Stop fidgeting," or "Smile, Emily." If only they'd left it at that. But Madison and Lena weren't done. They never were. During the toast, while Ryan bragged about 10 years of partnership and support, I heard Madison whisper behind me, "God, she looks awful. I told you we shouldn't have hit her face." I froze. Madison didn't lower her voice, because she thought no one else was listening, but someone was. One of the videographers standing nearby straightened slightly, glancing in our direction. Then Lena giggled. "Well, next time we'll aim lower." Madison snorted. "Can you imagine if she had shown up looking normal? She would have ruined everything." My blood went cold. They weren't scared. They weren't remorseful. They were proud. And the mic clipped to Ryan's jacket was blinking red, recording. Ryan wrapped an arm around me again, smiling for the camera crew. "Chin up, sweetheart," he murmured. "You're making this more dramatic than it needs to be." My father, standing just 10 feet away, clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles went white. The room began to close in on me. Ryan finished his toast to applause, then leaned down and whispered in my ear, "If you ruin tonight, I swear." But he didn't finish, because someone else's voice cut across the noise. "Emily." My head snapped toward the door. My heart stopped. Erin stood there. She looked like a storm walking on two legs. Her hair was wild from the drive. Her leather jacket hung open. Her eyes burned like coals. And when she saw my face, my bruised, swelling, stitched-together face, her entire expression shattered. The room went dead silent. Ryan stiffened. Madison's champagne glass paused mid-air. Lena's phone slowly lowered. Conversations died mid-sentence. Erin stepped forward slowly, deliberately. Her boots echoed on the polished hardwood floor. I heard someone whisper, "Oh my God, they're twins." She stopped right in front of me. She didn't touch me. Her hands were shaking too hard, but her voice was steady. "Who did that to you?" Ryan cleared his throat. "Erin, this is not the—" She didn't even look at him. "Emily?" she repeated. "Who touched you?" My throat tightened. "We can't do this here." Erin's jaw tensed. "We're doing it exactly here." Madison scoffed. "She fell." "You know how dramatic Emily is." Erin turned slowly. "Shut up." Madison's mouth snapped shut. Lena stepped back instinctively. Ryan tried again. "Erin, stop. You're causing a scene." "No," she said, eyes locked on him. "I'm exposing one." The room buzzed with whispers. Ryan tried to grab my arm, but Erin moved between us in a second. "Touch her again," she warned, "and I'll break your hand." Ryan's face reddened. "Security?" "No," the videographer said suddenly. We're documenting everything, per the campaign agreement." Ryan spun toward him. "Turn the cameras off." "We actually can't," the director said, swallowing hard. "Not unless the candidate ends the shoot." People began filming on their phones. A ripple of tension spread across the room. My father stepped closer. My mother whispered, "Oh, God." Then Madison made her fatal mistake. She sneered and said loudly, "She needed to be taught respect. If Emily didn't act like a brat, none of this would have happened." The entire room heard. Every single person, even Ryan's mic blinking its steady red light. Erin moved in one fast, clean motion. Her hand cracked across Madison's face with a sharp, echoing smack. Madison stumbled back, gasping, clutching her cheek. Ryan lunged forward. "You psycho!" Lena screamed and charged at Erin. Erin sidestepped like she'd been expecting it for years. Lena's momentum carried her straight into the corner of a table. Her forehead hit the edge with a dull thud. She slid down the table leg, clutching her face, crying, "She attacked me!" Erin pointed at her calmly. "Self-defense," someone whispered. "I saw it." Lena went at her first. Someone else, Madison, literally admitted hitting Emily. Chaos erupted. People stood. Some backed away. A few took pictures. Someone gasped. "Is her eye? Oh my God!" Ryan grabbed Erin's arm. Erin twisted free with ease. "Don't touch me! She's violent!" Ryan shouted to the room. "Someone call the police." Erin lifted her phone. Already did. Her voice was cold. "But not for me. For you." Ryan froze. "I've been recording since I walked in," she said, raising the screen. "Every word, every threat, every confession." The videographer swallowed audibly. We also captured audio." Ryan's campaign manager whispered, "Jesus Christ." His father muttered, "Ryan, what have you done?" My mother pulled me toward her gently. My father stepped between Ryan and us. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't step back. I didn't apologize. I didn't shrink. I stood. Beside my sister, behind my parents, in front of 50 witnesses. Ryan looked at me, eyes wide with something I'd never seen in him. Fear. Real fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but for the first time he had no script, no charm, no clever manipulation. Only the truth hanging heavy in the air. Everyone watching, everyone knowing. And that was the final escalation. Not the slap, not the shove, not the blood. It was the moment Ryan Collins realized he'd lost control of the one thing he cared about more than his family, more than me, more than anything. His image. And he would never get it back. If you've ever been in a room where the air suddenly shifts, where every breath feels like it's balancing on the edge of a knife, you know exactly what the restaurant felt like in that moment. 50 people stood frozen. The lights from the chandelier reflected off the polished floor like shards of glass. The soft piano music that had been playing minutes earlier had cut off mid-note. All that remained was the buzz of whispers, the metallic clink of someone's fork slipping from their hand, and Lena's whining sobs as she pressed her hand against her bleeding forehead. But the loudest sound of all was silence. Silence between me and Ryan. Silence packed tight with 10 years of swallowed apologies, excuses, gaslighting, and bruises no one was supposed to see. Erin took one step forward, placing herself between me and Ryan. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was controlled, steady, like she'd been preparing for this moment from the second I whispered, "I need you." Ryan scoffed, trying to reclaim his composure. "Everyone, let's all calm down." "No," Erin said simply. That one word sliced the room open. Madison was still clutching her cheek, eyes watery, stunned that anyone had dared to hit her back. Her voice shook. "She assaulted me. Arrest her. Do something." Ryan gestured wildly. "Someone call the police. My sisters were attacked." "I'm right here," a voice said from the back of the room. Everyone turned. Officer Barnes, the retired cop, who lived down the street from my parents, stepped through the doorway. My father had clearly called him earlier, instinctively knowing something would go wrong. Barnes walked forward slowly, eyes scanning the room, noting the overturned chair, the spilled champagne, Lena crying on the floor, Madison trembling, Ryan sweating. And then he looked at me. At my face. At my swollen shut eye and the cut above my eyebrow. At the bruise blooming across my cheek. His jaw tightened. "Emily," he said quietly, "do you need medical attention?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat felt scraped raw from holding in too much for too long. Ryan stepped between us. "She's fine. It was an accident." Barnes raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "She fell," Ryan repeated firmly. "Please move aside. This is a private family celebration." That word again. Family. A word he twisted until it meant submission, silence, and control. Barnes didn't step aside. "I'll ask again. Emily, were you hurt intentionally?" Erin turned to me, her voice soft but steady. You don't have to protect them anymore." My father stepped up next to Barnes. "She's not answering because she's scared." Ryan's father barked. "This is ridiculous. Emily is emotional and confused. Let's not make a spectacle," Erin snapped. "Your children beat my sister." Gasps rippled through the room. Silverware clinked. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," again. Someone else murmured, "I heard them admit it." Erin lifted her phone high. I have the entire conversation recorded. I also have Madison saying they taught Emily respect earlier tonight. You provoked them, Elaine Collins cried desperately. You barged in here, Erin smirked coldly. And your daughters barged into my sister's face. Barnes lifted a hand. Let me hear the audio. Ryan stepped in front of him. This is harassment. She's not an officer. She had no right to record anything. Barnes looked at me again. Emily, step away from your husband. Ryan's head whipped toward me. Emily, stay right where you are. His voice was lower than a whisper. A command. A warning. My body reacted the way it had for years. Freeze, obey, survive. But Erin's voice slid in like a lifeline. You called me today, she reminded me quietly. You asked for help. So take one step, Em. Just one. I didn't move. Not because I didn't want to. Because I was afraid I might collapse if I tried. Then I felt something touch my hand. My mother's fingers. Warm, trembling, determined. She leaned close. Sweetheart, come with us. Her voice cracked. Please. My father moved closer too, his presence solid, anchoring me. And suddenly I realized something. I wasn't alone. I wasn't outnumbered. I wasn't small. Not anymore. I took one step. Ryan grabbed my arm. Barnes immediately grabbed Ryan's wrist. Let go of her. Ryan jerked back. This is my wife. And she looks terrified of you, Barnes said evenly. Back up. For a moment, Ryan's mask slipped entirely. His eyes went dark, seething with panic. Not panic about me, panic about the audience, the witnesses, the cameras still rolling. Because the videographer crew hadn't stopped. The main cameraman slowly zoomed in, mouth slightly open, unable to look away from the unfolding disaster. Ryan finally released my arm. The crowd parted when Erin guided me forward. I felt dozens of eyes on me. Shock, pity, horror, fury, confusion. But none of them mattered. Only mine did. And mine weren't looking at the crowd. Mine were locked on Ryan. He stared at me like I was betraying him by telling the truth, by stepping away, by choosing myself. Barnes turned to the crew. I need to listen to that audio. The director nodded shakily, waving over the sound technician. He unclipped the tiny mic from Ryan's jacket. It glowed red, still recording everything. He plugged it into his equipment. Static. A click. Then Madison's voice filled the room, amplified. She needed to be taught respect. The audio was crystal clear. Lena's giggling followed. Next time, we'll aim lower. A woman gasped so loudly a few heads turned. Then Ryan's voice, smooth as poison. Maybe now she'll remember her place. Whispers exploded like firecrackers around the room. Did he just... Oh my God. That's abuse. Call the real police. Madison lunged forward like she could grab the audio out of the air. That's taken out of context. Erin laughed. Oh, what context makes we beat her sound reasonable? Ryan panicked. Stop the recording. Delete it. You can't use that. Barnes said. Actually, you can. That's when the shift happened. Everyone in the room, every donor, every acquaintance, every extended family member backed away from the Collins family like they were radioactive. Ryan yanked at his tie, face reddening. Enough. All of you are blowing this out of proportion. Emily falls all the time. She's clumsy and emotional, and Ryan. My voice was quiet, but it cut him off like a blade. The room silenced instantly. I'd barely spoken above a whisper all night. The fact that I was speaking now made every head turn. Ryan blinked at me. Emily, you said they taught me respect. I said, right before they hit me. His face contorted. I didn't mean... And you told me if I embarrassed you tonight, things would get worse. Someone near the back whispered, Jesus Christ. I took another breath, my ribs shaking. You checked my phone records every day. You isolated me from my sister, from my friends. You made me ask permission to buy groceries. My voice cracked but didn't break. You hurt me, Ryan. He shook his head violently. No. No. That never happened. She's twisting things. She's confused, Emily. You're not well. Erin stepped in front of him again. She's the clearest voice in this room, Madison screamed. This is all lies, Lena sobbed. I didn't mean to push her that hard. Ryan told us to. The room erupted again. Someone record this. Oh my God. She admitted it. What the hell? She pushed her. Barnes raised his voice. Everyone quiet. The room fell silent. He looked at me. Emily, do you want to press charges? Ryan's voice cracked, desperate. Emily, don't you dare, yes! It came out louder than I expected. My heart thundered against my ribs. My mother covered her mouth, tears streaming. My father nodded once, proud, relieved, furious all at once. Aaron's eyes softened. Ryan's world collapsed in real time. His shoulders sagged. His eyes darted around the room searching for someone, anyone to take his side. No one did. Madison backed away, horrified. Lena slid to the ground, sobbing harder. Ryan finally whispered, "Emily, don't do this." I met his eyes. "You already did." That's the moment the police sirens echoed faintly outside. Barnes turned toward the doors. "Backup's here!" Ryan's father shouted. "This is absurd! We will ruin you for this!" Aaron laughed. "Try. Please. Try." The officers entered the room, scanning quickly. Barnes pointed. That one he gestured at Madison slapped her. That one he gestured at Lena pushed her into a table. And him he pointed at Ryan, ordered it. Ryan screamed, "I did not!" But the audio replayed his voice with brutal clarity. Maybe now she'll remember her place. Officers moved forward. Madison shrieked. Lena covered her face. Ryan stumbled backward into a table, knocking over a vase of roses petals scattering at his feet. The officer closest to him said, "Sir, turn around." Ryan's voice cracked. "You can't do this. I'm running for city council. My father, my lawyer, my campaign, sir!" The officer repeated, "Turn around." He finally did. When they pulled his wrists behind his back, the room exhaled, some in shock, some in vindication, some in pity. I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. As they walked him toward the exit, he twisted to look at me one last time. His voice was small. "Emily." I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I stared back with the clearest expression I had worn in a decade. Something between freedom and fire. He was escorted out the door. Madison and Lena were taken next, their protests fading down the hallway. And as the last of them disappeared, the room felt different. Lighter, like oxygen was returning to a place that hadn't breathed in years. Erin wrapped her arm around me, not gripping, not controlling, just holding. "You're safe," she whispered. The words hit me like a wave. My knees buckled. She held me up. My mother reached us, sobbing. My father placed a shaking hand on my shoulder. Guests murmured, stunned, shifting between tables, unsure what to do. The videographer team stood frozen, their footage likely already backed up somewhere. I looked around the room, the overturned chairs, the spilled drinks, the abandoned plates, the camera lights still glowing. The battlefield where my marriage died, and where I came back to life. The door closed behind the final officer. The chandelier lights flickered once as if sighing. I exhaled slowly, painfully, like I was letting go of 10 years in a single breath. This was the climax. The breaking, the unveiling, the beginning. Because the truth was, they thought they'd destroyed me. But they had just handed me everything I needed to finally destroy the story they built around me. Their image, their lies, their control, everything. And this was only the beginning. The hours after the restaurant felt like drifting through the aftermath of a storm, debris everywhere. Sirens fading, adrenaline dissolving into a strange, shaky quiet. I sat in the backseat of Erin's car, wrapped in her gym hoodie, my mother holding an ice pack to my face, my father driving behind us in his truck like a shadow. The glow from passing streetlights slid across the windshield, painting my bruises in flashes of gold, then black, then gold again. Every time the car hit a bump, a pulse of pain radiated through my cheekbone, but it felt distant, like it belonged to another version of me. Erin kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror. "You doing okay back there?" I nodded, though my voice felt lodged somewhere deep. "Yeah, I think so." "You were unbelievable," she said softly. "I know you don't feel it yet, but you were." My mother sniffed. She's always been stronger than she thinks. Her hand trembled gently against the ice pack. My father's blinker clicked steadily ahead of us, a quiet metronome of reassurance. For the first time in years, I let myself lean into them completely, without shame, without guilt, without fear that Ryan would scold me for being too attached to my family. As we pulled into my parents' driveway, the porch light flicked on automatically. It was warm, golden, familiar, nothing like the cold lighting in the Collins house. I inhaled deeply and realized something wild. This felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 10 years. Inside, Mom fussed over me with towels and warm broth. Dad brought down a stack of folders, thick, organized, terrifyingly thorough. "This is everything we've collected," he said quietly. "Dates, times, photos, statements from neighbors." I stared at the stack. "Dad, how long?" "2 years," he replied. My throat tightened. "You knew." He didn't soften the truth. "We suspected. But you kept saying you were fine, and we didn't want to push too hard and lose you completely." He paused, eyes glassy. "But tonight confirmed everything. Mom sat beside me, running a soft hand through my hair. We're going to help you file a restraining order first thing in the morning. Erin already called a lawyer. Erin nodded. A good one. She handles abuse cases. She's fierce. You'll like her. I let out a shaky breath. Okay. It wasn't confidence. It was surrender, the good kind. The kind that happens when you finally let people help you out of a burning building you pretended wasn't on fire. While Mom brewed tea, Dad spread documents across the table. Erin pulled out her phone and saved all the audio files to a private folder. Evidence. So much evidence. At one point, Dad frowned. This was on your voicemail, he said, handing me my phone. Ryan, 23 missed calls, 6 voicemails. I played the first one. Emily, please, just talk to me. You're confused. We can fix this. Delete. The second. What you did tonight is unforgivable. You ruined everything. Do you understand what you've cost me? Delete? The third. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. Madison and Lena overreacted. I'm sorry. Okay, I said, I'm sorry. Delete. The fourth. You think your sister can save you? She can't. You're my wife. Ours is the only version of the story that matters. If you don't come home, Erin grabbed the phone, jaw tightening. That's enough. Dad wrote something in his notebook. He won't get to finish that sentence again. Mom gently turned my face toward her. Sweetheart, you're safe here. Safe. The word felt foreign, fragile, precious. Later that night, after Erin fell asleep on the couch and my parents went upstairs, I sat alone in the guest room, the room that used to hold spare blankets and Christmas decorations. Now it held the broken remnants of my old life. I stared at myself in the mirror again. The swelling around my eye was worse. The cut above my eyebrow had started to crust. My cheek was a storm of blues and purples. But my eyes were different. Clear, focused, awake. My phone buzzed. A new message, unknown number. I clicked it. Hi, Emily. I was at the dinner tonight. My name is Olivia Moore. You don't know me, but I watched everything. And I think I need help. I'm scared to go home. Could we talk? My breath caught. Another woman. A stranger who found courage because she saw me stand up, even if I didn't feel brave when I did it. I typed back before I could second-guess myself. Yes. You're not alone. Tell me where you are. When I hit send, a quiet realization settled in my chest. This wasn't just about surviving Ryan. It wasn't even about justice anymore. It was about what came next. About the women, like me, like Olivia, who needed someone to tell them they weren't crazy, they weren't weak, they weren't dramatic, they weren't alone. I wasn't sure what form it would take, teaching self-defense with Erin, volunteering at shelters, guiding women through legal steps, documenting my story, helping others document theirs. But something was forming in the back of my mind. A plan, a path, a kind of revenge that didn't involve fists or shouting or public humiliation. A revenge made of truth, community, exposure, power. Because the Collins family thought they'd silenced me tonight. They thought bruising my face and parading me around would keep their secret safe. But what they didn't realize was simple. They didn't break me. They uncovered me. And they handed me the one weapon I needed. The truth. Bloody, undeniable, recorded truth. And I wasn't done with it yet. Not even close. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe. Stories like mine aren't rare. They're just hidden behind perfect photos and quiet dinners. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, share it. No one should fight alone. I'm still rebuilding, still learning what strength feels like, and this journey isn't over. So stay with me. More truth is coming. More voices are rising, and maybe, just maybe, you'll hear a piece of your own story in the next chapter.